Alright, we are back with another video, and today we are talking about 6 simple and easy things that you should start with if you're just starting your journey. Now I know that probably sounds quite broad, but if your goal is fat loss, or we could venture out into saying you're just looking to make some positive impacts on your health and fitness, these are the 6 simple and easy things that I would focus on to get that ball rolling. So numero uno, and we're gonna start where all good fat loss videos start, talking about nutrition. Now, often when we think about nutrition in regards to fat loss, most people think about restricting. They think about trying to minimize what they're eating. They try to think about cutting out specific foods or particular food groups. And really, it's all about taking away. But actually what I want to suggest and what I want you to think about is optimizing your diet and optimizing your meals, trying to think about what you can actually add in rather than immediately having to think about restricting and taking away. Now, maybe this sounds a little bit counterintuitive off the bat, but hear me out with this one. You want to think, and you know, if you've watched any of my videos, I will bang on about this until the cows come home. You want to think about sustainability and doing something that you can maintain. Fat loss, from a physical perspective, is inherently not a difficult thing to do. Mentally, it's not so easy, and we'll come on to that. It also can be a really challenging and lengthy journey, and that's why we want to think about not only making it as easy as possible, but also as sustainable as possible. Now, if we restrict ourselves, we're going to experience hunger, and although we need a certain level of restriction to put ourselves in a calorie deficit, which is what we need for fat loss, we don't want to restrict ourselves too much that our hunger becomes extreme, our mood drops, our energy drops, our cortisol levels are going to increase. It's going to have lots of different negative effects on us, and ultimately all that's going to lead to is something that's really hard to maintain for a long period of time. You've still got to be able to live life and enjoy it at the same time. On top of that, if you are just starting out, I know how overwhelming it can be thinking about calories that you should be eating, what macros you should be eating, what diet you should be following, what foods you should be eating. There is so much information out there, and ultimately we want to keep it as simple as possible. And that's where the idea of thinking about optimizing what you're eating rather than just restricting it is going to be really beneficial. I'll use my own journey with fat loss to give you a bit of example, but when I was just starting out, I knew literally nothing. Like, I didn't know what a calorie was. I had never heard of a macronutrient. I didn't know about protein. I didn't know what was meant to be eaten, what wasn't meant to be eaten. I was ignorant to it all. What I simply did was just make simple switches, and I tried to maintain that. And because I was in a position where what I had currently been eating was quite significant, by just simply reducing my portions to what would be considered a normal portion for most people was enough to elicit fat loss in the short term. And then as time went on, I was able to increase my knowledge, to make little tweaks, to add things in. But simply by making some very simple switches, not having to really think too much about it, that was enough to get that ball rolling. Now, if we want to bump it up one more level, we can start to think about how we can optimize our meals and snacks to make fat loss easier, and like I say, get that ball rolling. So we start to think about what we could potentially add into our meals and our snacks to bump up satiety. So these will be things like adding in a source of fat, protein, or fiber. And by doing this, we tend to be fuller for longer, and naturally we tend to eat less. If we take into consideration and spotlight some of our other lifestyle factors, which we'll go into in a second, then this can really help to manage hunger, to keep that satiety throughout the day. And naturally what we see is that we eat a little bit less without having to really pay much attention or think about it. And on top of all of that, we're maintaining a good relationship with food. We're not thinking about cutting things out. We're not thinking about restricting or not going out with our girlfriends on the weekend for that dinner because we're on a diet. We're actually thinking about how we can add to our life and how we can make this work for us. So an example of this would be if you would normally have a bowl of cereal for breakfast, is there something that you can add into that meal that's either protein, fiber, or fat rich that's going to bump up the satiety and bump up the enjoyment? So basically, again, thinking about this idea of optimizing that meal to make us fuller, to make the energy last longer, and so that we enjoy it more. And there are so many options. We could think about adding a yogurt on the side, and that could be a protein fortified yogurt. We could add some protein powder into the milk. We could add a banana, so we're mixing that into our cereal, and we're gonna get some fiber, some fats. We could add some nuts. We could add some peanut butter. Actually, there are so many different options. Whereas on the flip side, what you might do is weigh out your portion of cereal if you were trying to restrict your calories eat that, and then an hour later you're going to feel hungry again potentially. Maybe you're going to snack and that wasn't in your plan, and then you're going to feel like you're failing, and then the negative mindset kicks in, the low energy kicks in, and it's just this vicious cycle around and around. So in summation to this point, because I feel like we could make an entire separate video on this entirely, you want to think about food as fuel, because essentially that's what it is. You are fueling your body to be able to do all the amazing things. And no doubt, if you're starting a health and fitness journey or a fat loss journey, you're going to be increasing your movement, you're going to be maybe even exercising, and you're going to be wanting energy for that. You don't want your mood to be affected, you don't want your sleep to be affected, and you definitely need to make it enjoyable and something that you can sustain for a long time. And by optimizing your meals rather than thinking purely about restriction, this is going to be a great way to do that. And also, don't forget to include the things that you like and the little treats that you always have, because again, we want to think about sustainability, we want to enjoy it. Life is too short. All right, number 2, and bear with me on this one because I know a lot of people aren't going to want to hear it, me included, but it makes a big difference, and that is sleep. Quality and quantity of sleep matters, and until you experience really poor quality and quantity of sleep, especially day after day after, well, night after night after night, you might not realize just how much of an impact it makes. Firstly, sleep is just important because that's when your body is repairing itself, that is when your brain is processing everything that's going on, and we need sleep. It is important for our function. But on top of that, if we have poor quality and quantity of sleep, it raises our cortisol levels, and this is going to have lots of different impacts in lots of different ways. And while, yes, sometimes we're going to have bad night's sleep, we need to try and manage what we can to make it as easy as possible. Have you ever had a couple of really bad nights sleep and you just notice that your mood is affected, your energy levels are affected, maybe your hunger is affected, you might be craving certain types of food, maybe all you really want is just some form of sugar in any way it comes? Well, that would make sense because that is exactly physiologically how we would expect our bodies to respond. Again, we're all here for making this as easy and sustainable as possible. So anything that we can do to manage our hunger, to increase our energy levels, to increase our cognitive function, to increase our mood is only going to benefit us in so many different ways. Even things like motivation, and I know we can't always rely on motivation, it's not always going to be there, but you're going to feel more motivated to want to get up and do the things that you're setting yourself if you have more energy, if you're well rested, if your body's recovering from what you're doing. If you're not getting at least 7 hours of sleep on a regular basis, then you're probably not getting enough. And trust me, this is pot to kettle black because my sleep schedule has been horrendous recently, but I've been working really, really hard on it, and I have noticed significant differences just in 4 or 5 days of just getting some decent sleep. So prioritize getting in at least 7 hours of sleep if you can, and I know this isn't easy for everybody, but if it's possible for you to actually find the time to get 7 hours of sleep, then try to prioritize that. Try to have a relatively regular bedtime, so try to aim to go to bed within an hour window every night. So it might be I try to go to bed between 10 and 11, and then also think about everything that you can do in terms of sleep hygiene before you go to bed. So setting the environment, I know this is all really tedious stuff, but not going on screens, not lying in bed on your screens. So put your technology in a different room if you can. Try to think about turning things off before you go to bed. Some people like to have a bath or a shower before they go to bed, so it's nice and warm and it just calms them down a little bit. Some people like to do a little bit of meditation. Whatever it is that works for you, try to have some good sleep hygiene before you go to bed. Now, I know all of this sounds easy, but it's actually quite hard to do because it's really boring and tedious stuff to do. But I promise you, if you just give yourself a couple of weeks and try it, see how you feel and see if you notice any differences, you will definitely see the positive impacts that it will have. And I like to sometimes trick myself into doing these things. So I might just say to myself, this is a challenge that I'm going to do for 2 weeks or for a month. So 30 days, I'm going to try and go to bed at a regular bedtime and I'm going to try and get 7 hours of sleep. And then after 30 days, I can just do whatever I want. And usually that's enough to kind of kickstart the habit where it feels normal. But I'm initially kicking it off with thinking that it's just a temporary measure. It's all about making it work for you. Okay, number 3. If you didn't like number 2, you're probably not gonna like this one either because I am exactly the same. And that is drink your water. Hydration. Why is it so important? Not only are you significantly made up of water, your body also needs to be hydrated to keep energized and to stay functioning well. I really feel like staying hydrated is one of those habits which can take some gritty determination at first if you're not used to drinking much water. And then once you get used to it, you kind of wonder why you never really did it in the first place. But you will notice so many benefits if you just start getting at least an adequate amount of water in throughout your day. It will help with that sleep. It will help with satiety and managing your hunger. It's going to help give you energy. Honestly, you'll just feel more alive, and you'll even notice things like your skin will improve. You just are so much better when you're adequately hydrated. You train better, you move better, you feel better. Everything is easier when you're just drinking enough water. So what can you do? I would always suggest just having a bottle and having it near you all the time. So I have a big litre bottle with a straw, and I will literally just sip on that throughout the day. I take it with me everywhere. So if I'm going on a little walk or I'm just gonna quickly nip to the shop for an errand, I'll take my water bottle with me, and I say to myself, I'm gonna try and drink a quarter or half of that before I get back. Or for example, if I have a client check-in, they last for 30 minutes, I will put a bottle of water next to me, and I'll aim to try and get through that bottle of water throughout the call. I'm sure the next question will be, well, how much water should I be drinking? And you'll get lots of different answers depending on which sources you find or who you ask. To be honest with you, you're gonna know whether you're hydrated or not by the color of your pee. That's a really simple way of looking at it. If you're going to the toilet and it's darker than like a light yellow, then you're probably a little bit dehydrated, and you just need to try and increase that water intake a little bit. Whereas if it's clear or just light yellow, then you're probably good. Just keep maintaining that. All right, so quick little recap so far. Firstly, we are fueling our bodies adequately with good, nourishing foods and optimizing our diet. We are getting good quality and quantity of sleep. So we're aiming for around 7 hours of sleep at night, and we're trying to get a regular bedtime and get good quality of sleep as well. And then finally, we are hydrating ourselves. We are not thirsty little prunes. We are at peak hydration. So next up, for point number 4, we're gonna talk about what everyone actually loves talking about, and that is exercise. But I want you to think about exercise differently. I want you to simply think about it as just moving more than you did yesterday, or moving more than you usually do. And moving more can look like so many different things. It can be simply cleaning your apartment or your house. It can be going for a little walk. It could be playing with your kids or playing with your animals, doing a dance YouTube video, a full-blown workout. But when you're just starting out, I want you to try and shift your mindset. And I know this can be really, really difficult, especially given the society that we live in. But shift your mindset from thinking about having to exercise and that being an important part of the process to thinking about, I just want to move better, I want to enjoy moving, and I want to feel the health benefits of being able to move a little bit more, rather than thinking about it as inherently linked to fat loss. There are literally zillions of reasons that I'm saying this, but the biggest one is that I feel that people set themselves this idea that they need to exercise regularly, that they need to follow a regime, that they need to follow a workout program, and either they don't know what to do, which is totally valid, because why would you if you're just starting out? Just like I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Or they start, they can't maintain what they've set themselves, they feel like they've failed, and then we come back to the beginning. And none of that needs to happen, because simply moving a little bit more will be enough to elicit a response and to get that ball rolling. And that's what we're trying to focus on here, is 6 simple things that you can just start doing today that are going to benefit you into just getting this journey started, getting one foot in front of the other, so then you can feel like you can add on to that, build momentum, and like we know, a rolling stone gathers no moss. It honestly can be as simple as, if you always take the escalator, it's fine if you still want to take the escalator, but as you're going up the escalator, walk up. Or if walking up the escalator is too difficult, then when you're coming down, take the stairs and walk down the stairs. Simple things like this will make a difference, not only in your physical ability, but more so into the mindset shift of who you are becoming. I am the person who moves a little bit more. I can enjoy movement. I can put movement into my day without it feeling like it has to be a chore. Trust me, once you get it started, it becomes a lot easier, but the first initial step is always the hardest one. So instead of thinking about exercise and having to be really rigid and strict with it, just try to think about simply moving more, taking an opportunity where you can to add movement into your day and to try and find enjoyment in it. So be inquisitive and try and find something that you love as well. All right, number 5. If you have read the amazing book Atomic Habits by James Clear, then you will probably have heard of this. And it is such an easy one to do, but it has such a big impact. And that is build your environment to make these things as easy as possible. Your environment and your surroundings has such an impact on every single thing you do, on your motivation, on your ability to do the things that you set yourself to do. So set up your environment to make the choices that you want to make as easy as possible. An example of this is that you don't drink enough water, so you always have a bottle near you. You're creating an environment where you have that water available to you and it's easy to access it, so then you can start to increase your water intake. Another example, which I think actually he mentions in the book, is that let's say you have a goal that you want to watch TV a little bit less. Instead of having the remote control on your coffee table, so it's always there to access, put it somewhere that's a little bit more inaccessible. So maybe put it inside a cupboard. So you have to put an extra step in your way to be able to access that remote control and turn the TV on. So every time you walk into the room, you're not immediately seeing the TV remote control and thinking, oh, maybe I'll just watch some TV. It's not in your line of vision. Set your environment to make the lifestyle that you want to lead as easy as possible for you. If we're looking at it in terms of some of the points that we've already talked about, think about your bedroom environment. How can you build the environment to be as easy as possible to get that quality and quantity of sleep? Do you have a TV in here? Get rid of it. Do you have your phone charger in here? Get rid of it. Is your bed somewhere that you want to be and want to spend time? If it's not, is there something that you can change about it? If we're looking at nutrition, can you see those foods that are going to optimize your meals and your snacks? For example, when you walk into your kitchen, what do you see? Do you see a bowl of beautiful fruit, which is fiber rich and it's going to keep you nice and satiated? Or do you see leftovers from last night, which maybe aren't going to make you feel so inspired? When you really start thinking about how you can use this tool to optimize your surroundings and make these things as easy as possible for yourself, you realize just how powerful a tool it really is. Okay, and we've reached point number 6, the final one, and this one might be a little bit left field for most people, but I actually think this could be the most important one, definitely in my books for sure, and that is connection and filling your social cup. Now this is something I see time and time again because it kind of rolls into self-care as well, but connection and human interaction is so vital, but often so lacking in today's world, and it matters so much. Now I could go on a bit of a tangent and say it's about surrounding yourself with the right people and having people that elevate you and motivate you and are positive forces in your life, and that honestly is amazing. Like I've said in a few videos, in the last year or so, I've really tried to surround myself with those people that give me energy and that I walk away from feeling motivated and positive and like I feel stronger and more determined when I leave them, versus noticing people that maybe when you walk away you feel like your energy's been drained a little bit. Of course it's great to have the good eggs around, the ones that fill up your cup, but also in general, social interaction is just important. I mean, there are so many ways in which connection is important that I think it would take forever if I was to sit here and list it all, and we probably know most of them. But ultimately, it just comes back to the fact that it's fulfilling. And as humans, we naturally are like tribe people, right? We want to be around other people. We need relationships with other people. We need human interaction, and it's going to help you in so many ways. It's going to keep you motivated. It's going to be a sounding board. You know, you're talking and interacting with other people, listening to what's going on in their lives. You can share what's going on in your life, discuss challenges and successes and ideas, or talk about something completely unrelated. But ultimately, it's all about this holistic view of what you can do, what lifestyle factors that you can manage to relieve stress, to make this journey as easy as possible, and to live a happy life, because that's what we really want, right? Before I finish up on this point, because I know there'll be some people out there who are thinking, well, I'm an adult, I don't really know that many people where I live. How do you make friends? How do you make connections? How do you create a community? And I get it, it's difficult, especially the older you get, it feels like it's more and more challenging. I moved to this country 4 years ago, and I honestly barely knew anyone. I came to a city that I had never been to before, and I set up a life. And it's taken several years, but I feel like I've got to a point where I have a really good network of people around me. And the way I met them is by being really proactive and reaching out. If I was at the gym, for example, I would go and talk to people, or maybe they would come and talk to me, but I would take the opportunity to actually create a connection with them. Or if I'm sitting in a cafe, it's about overcoming that fear to sit and talk to somebody who's next to you and maybe start a conversation. You just never know who you might meet. You can join clubs. There's so many different online platforms now which will either tell you about clubs and communities in your area. And not only that, but social media. I feel like the irony of social media is that it was designed to be social. It feels like it's become less and less social, but more and more damaging as time has come on. But use it and harness it as the tool that it should be. Reach out to people, create connection, send a message, ask a question. And actually, I would say nearly all my closest friends I have met through Instagram or dating apps, but they've just become friends afterwards. But Instagram's a really good place to start. On top of that, something that I found really helpful, but yes, challenging as well, is to start being a yes person. If someone suggests something and it's a little bit out of your comfort zone, say yes, like lean into the discomfort. A lot of the times I will say yes to things just purely for the fact that it terrifies me, just to challenge myself and to really push myself out of my comfort zone. But what I get back from that is usually I make friends or I make acquaintances, I create connection, I feel like I've achieved something. And all of these things have so many positive benefits in so many different areas. And not only that, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes to do it more regularly. Ooh, I feel like my hand movements have increased. So I'm getting really, really passionate about this. So probably time for me to like calm it down. And let's wrap up this video. So those are the 6 things that I would do if I was starting out again. And I wholeheartedly know that if you can start to focus on those 6 things, it will make such a significant difference to your journey and getting that ball rolling. I feel like if I say easier or sustainable one more time in this video, it just might be too much. So I'm gonna try and not say that too much, but ultimately, don't forget that is what we're aiming for. And also on top of that, don't strive for perfection. Doesn't exist, we know that. We want to focus on progress, being a little bit better today than we were yesterday, making progress in certain areas. You're not going to see progress in every area every single day. That wouldn't be normal and we wouldn't expect that to happen. And of course, progress isn't linear. If you need some reminders, the last video I put up was 10 health and fitness reminders that you might need to hear today. So maybe go and watch that video if you need a little bit of a pep me up, a little bit of a motivational speech. But other than that, I'm going to zip it and let you guys get on with your day. I hope this video has helped in some way. If you have any more suggestions, feel free to drop them down below. I'd love to hear what your experiences are or what your advice would be. But other than that, I hope you have a beautiful day and be kind to yourselves out there. I will see you in the next video.